Hello, hello. Hello. As people are joining, feel free to hop here on camera, off camera, in the chat, on mic. Just going to give a couple more minutes. There's one more person that we're potentially waiting on. So I'm going to give about 1.5 more minutes and then we'll go ahead and start. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started today. So it's the moon gathering for November 2022. And today is November 20th, 2022. And it is the sun's day. The sun is currently, as we speak, in a trine to Jupiter. Jupiter is home in its sign of Pisces. And sun trine Jupiter makes for a great day, or a terrible day, or a mediocre day, because that's how astrology works, right? So it really depends completely on your chart, your lived experiences, and how that reflects with the energies, right? So the reason I start that out today is because there's going to be a lot of stuff online, there already is, about this Sagittarius new moon, right? And all of the great opportunities and hope and faith and beauty that is offered around this cosmic energy. And the reason, again, that I'm bringing this up here is because it's important to remember that astrology happens to each of us differently. We all experience it very differently. And some people will have really great things come forward, and some people will still be moving through some really difficult things, and it'll be a lot more difficult to feel the hope and the opportunities and the joy that some other people may be feeling and expressing in their astrology posts, specifically around this moon. So I just want to make space for all of the things that can come forward, right? And a lot of us are experiencing them all at the same time, right? I know that I have talked to multiple people that are here in the Patreon about how we're kind of coming into holding joy and pain together in a new way. And I think there's a lot of magic and medicine in that experience as we move through Sagittarius season. But again, just putting space here for maybe the not so great and hopeful and opportunistic Jupiterian things that often get talked about here. Those things are here too, and we're going to talk about those. But I don't want anybody to come on here and think that there's not space for the reality of what's going on, right? And we'll talk about all of that as we get into some of the stuff around Sagittarius and what's going on. So just to kind of start that today, we have been moving out of Scorpio season, right? So we had planets, we had Mercury and Venus and the sun all in Scorpio. The sun is still there finishing out, but Mercury and Venus have moved out of Scorpio into Sagittarius that happened this last week. And that shift of Scorpio energy, which is fixed water, into Sagittarius, which is mutable fire. It's a very distinctive shift. And a lot of people have already started to feel that shift from, there's a lot of ways that we can look at the signs. The other way we can look at this shift from one of the other ways from Scorpio to Sagittarius is around, Scorpio is very internal, right? It's a water sign. So it's about receiving, it's internal. And so as these planets have moved through Scorpio, they've been doing this inner kind of dialogue or this inner work, right, around the emotions and water things, right? So not just emotions, also intuition and creativity and all kinds of different stuff. And now that it's done that kind of inner work, which can be seen as shadow work here, specifically in Scorpio season, now we get this energy moving into Sagittarius, which is an external sign. It's yang energy, right? It's expressive. And so we can take what we've learned and what we've moved through in Scorpio and bring it out into the world in some way, right? And again, this is all going to depend on how this energy manifests in your chart. And we can get into that more later, but this shift from fixed water into mutable fire is a pretty distinctive shift. There's a lot happening in the background that colors a lot of that energy, so nothing happens in a vacuum, right? But I think a lot of people, at least in my experience, people that I've talked to and things that I've witnessed, are starting to feel that shift of kind of lightening, right? From going from that deep underworld excavation of karmic and shadows and all of that stuff. And we've brought awareness to some of that stuff that was hidden that maybe we didn't have awareness of a couple months ago. And now we get to kind of work with that, right? And become more aware of what was brewing so that we can turn that into our purpose. That's the hope when we go from Scorpio to Sagittarius, is that we take that Scorpio medicine, that deep dive, that work that we've been doing in the shadows, to become more aware of where we are so that we can transform it and bring it through into some kind of lesson or future kind of experience, opportunity, right? Sagittarius. And it kind of reminds me of when the nodes were moving through when the nodes were moving through Sagittarius and Gemini a couple years ago. This Sagittarius energy with Jupiter here gives me the feeling of having the ability to take back the narrative of your story in some way. Sagittarius is the storyteller. It's the philosophy thing, right? Sagittarius and Jupiter rule over mythology, like the general telling of stories, right? And so with the Sagittarius new moon and some other things that are coloring this moon, it gives me that feeling of there's a new way to tell your story that honors you, that honors your experience, and maybe not even your story, right? This moon is tied to the United States colonized holiday of Thanksgiving, which I won't go into big here. But there's a lot of untruths that get told in that story in a lot of places, right? Not everybody. Some people are telling the true story, right? But the stories are different. Some people see Thanksgiving as a holiday where we're grateful and thankful of things. And some people see it as a day of mourning, right? Indigenous people, rightfully so, see it as a day of tears, as a day of mourning. And so I think around this new moon, there's big possibilities around telling a new story, telling the true story, telling the honorable and just story, the one that's more compassionate and more aware of the collective, right? Jupiter back into Pisces, bringing in that collective compassion and love and connection, the truth that Jupiter seeks to tell, right? So this can happen on a collective level in many ways, and this can also be happening in our own experience of new ways to tell your story, whatever that looks like. So we're going to get into all of the astrology of the new moon, but I just want to make space here for anyone that's live to talk about anything that's come up for them since I started this ramble. Any questions that you have so far, anything you want to share just about this energy, anything you've seen online that you want to share, any wisdom you have. I'm going to take a beverage sip, so I'm going to pause and mute, make space for anybody that wants to come on live. If not, no problem, we'll pull up the chart, but I'm going to leave it here for just a moment. Okay, so as we go through, feel free to check into the chat, add anything into the chat. The outline today, so didn't do this so far, sorry, just been hanging out with my pre-rambles. So today we're going to talk about the new moon stuff, right? We're going to pull up the chart here in a minute and talk about the astrology of the surrounding energy. And then I'm going to end it with I don't know what I would call this, but it's breath work kind of, a ritual kind of, but I'm going to lead you through a little breathing exercise for our chakras to kind of cleanse and align that stuff. So if we get to the end of this and you don't feel like that's accessible for you today, no problem. It'll be here on the replay that hopefully will be out in 24 to 48 hours. But we're going to do a quick check-in with the chakra system that will help us kind of move into this new moon, right? Because in order to receive, which is a lot of what is happening in this moon, we have to have space, right? And one of the reasons that we don't have space to receive one of the tools we can use is checking into our chakra system. So that's what we're going to do today at the end. But first, we're going to get into the astrology of it. And I will go ahead and share that screen. Okay. So let me get my stuff all situated here. All right, so this is the chart for the new moon. As always, with a transit chart like this, don't worry about the housing systems. We're just looking at the planets and the signs and the aspects that they're having with each other. So the first thing that we can see, this is Eastern time. So on November 23rd, 5:57 p.m. Eastern time is the exact new moon. The new moon happens at 1 degree and 37 minutes of Sagittarius. So right when the sun enters into Sagittarius, it happens on the 22nd. And then we have this new moon. So new moons usher in new beginnings, right? And this one is additionally ushering in new beginnings because the sun and moon are literally at the first degree of the sign. So there's a lot of newness or kind of like restart energy that's available here. But remember, there is still Mars is retrograde, right? Happening over here in Gemini, which is across the way. So it's in an opposition to that. Neptune and Mars are active. So there's still a lot of things that are holding back the energy, right? This moon is about the underground work, the planting of the seeds, the stuff that's happening under the soil that we don't see yet, which can test our faith and test our trust, right? Because we're not seeing action, we're not seeing movement happen. Jupiter is very much tied to our belief and our faith and our trust in ourselves, the universe, other people, for things to work out, right? Jupiter is, radical buoyancy, like it fall down and, it's always going to get back up and say, we're good, like we can do this, right? There's hope with Jupiter. And so this moon is very much about like finding the faith and finding the trust and finding the belief in your vision or your dream or your future or whatever it is that you're moving through, right? And so anyway, it's here at 1 degree of Sagittarius. So new beginning feels restart on kind of old stagnant energy. And that's part of why we're going to be doing the chakra work, is to clear out some of that kind of old stagnant energy as well. So um, the other thing that we see so we also have two planets here in Sagittarius, which are Venus and Mercury. So Venus and Mercury, at the time of this new moon, will have just gone through a cazimi that happens on the 21st, which is tomorrow. Venus and Mercury meet up in Sagittarius, right? So this is the mind, Mercury, the heart, Venus. This is communication, Mercury, relationships, Venus, beliefs, Mercury, values, Venus. So this is the meeting of those two things together in Sagittarius, the sign of the storyteller, the sign of the philosopher, to find the truth in where those things meet for us. Right? And there's all kinds of different ways that we can veer off with each of these conversations, right? So if, my invitation anytime we talk about a lot of energies, if it's overwhelming for you, is to consider the planets that are most important to you, you feel most connected to. So this could be maybe the ruler of your ascendant, what is sometimes referred to as the chart ruler. This could be your Lord of the year, the planet that is kind of steering your life that year. This could be, it doesn't matter. But my point is, if you get overwhelmed by what's happening with everything, just pick a couple things, right? So maybe for me, Venus is my Lord of the year. So I pay specific attention to what Venus is doing in the transits. So under this new moon, I would pay attention to what the moon and the sun are doing, right? But then I would also pay very close attention to what Venus is bringing up for me, right? And then maybe I wouldn't pay so much attention to the other stuff, right? The other stuff that I'm going to talk about might not matter for me so much, right? So allow yourself to not feel the need to cling on to every single energy that's happening. Focus on what you feel pulled to, what you resonate with, what you're learning about, what's important for you in that moment. Right? So Venus and Mercury, the mind, the heart, values, communication, relationships, all that stuff kind of coming together to restart and recalibrate together as one. They've been moving together for a while, all the way through Sagittarius. They've been really close, within 1 degree of each other, and they'll start to kind of fade away at this point. But this is still, again, the 21st, which is tomorrow of the day that we're recording this, is the actual cazimi point. So still a lot of time to work with these two energies and unravel what the crossroads for them might be in your story as we're moving through. Okay. So we have all that stuff happening up here in Sagittarius. And then the other thing that we have going on, so yesterday, from the day that we're recording, so on the 19th, Neptune and Mars had their second exact square. So we talked a good bit about Mars and Neptune, so I'm not going to go into it a lot here today. But this is, Mars, our action, our purpose, with Neptune, which often, can, take the winds out of the sails and take a little bit of our energy away. This is really good for, creativity and fantasy and imagination. It's not good for clarity and kind of like reality-based things. So, it's not good for like practical getting things done kind of stuff. But really good for like magic and that kind of work. So just aware that this is here. And during the new moon, it's going to be pulling apart, but you can see that they're still within 1 degree of each other. So that energy is still very present all through next week. The other thing that will be present and will be actually coming into, I think it happens exactly on the 28th, is Mars is going to be having a conversation with Saturn. And this is the second time this has happened. So because Mars is retrograde, it's coming back over some of the stuff that it's already done, right? That same thing happened with Neptune. And I'll note the dates here. So they get together 3 times in a square, Mars and Neptune. The first time was on October 1st. I'm sorry. The first time was October 11th, 2022. The second square was yesterday, November 19th. And the third time that they will square each other will be in March 2023. So this is an ongoing story with Mars and Neptune, right? And this is tricky energy. This is a lot of different directions, and Neptune kind of coming in and making it hard to decipher what needs to be done, right? Because it's Mars in Gemini retrograde is going everywhere. It's pulling our focus all over the place. And Neptune's like, yeah, let me now throw all that stuff up in the air so you have no idea where the the important ones are, right? So there's just like, it's tricky. It's hard to navigate this energy when we're on a deadline, when we need things to be done in reality, right? It can be very difficult. But then it moves into this conversation with Saturn. And Saturn and Mars together can bring us an ability to put structure into some of that fantasy. So my invitation with these two energies is to work them together where we can, right? Mars and Neptune allow us to dream, allow us to imagine what it is that could be possible, right? And then Mars and Saturn allow us to put structure to that dream, to that fantasy. And so we have both of these energies here, Mars kind of coming out of that Neptune square, still really feeling it today and moving into the beginning of the week. And then we'll start to lean into and start to feel more of that Mars trine to Saturn, which is a supportive energy, a flowing energy for them to be able to work together, to actually maybe be able to get some things done, right? Saturn, working with Saturn is difficult for a lot of reasons, but it can be very helpful because the other thing that's happening is Mars is opposing all of this stuff in Sagittarius. And as these start to move through and hit this exact opposition to Mars, they're also going to be sextile Saturn. So when there's an opposition and a sextile, what is at this point is called the point of Thales, and it's a release valve. So it's the place that we can look to release the tension of the opposition, right? So it's forming a harmonious trine to this planet and a harmonious sextile to this planet. So it becomes the release valve. And so if we're able to lean into Saturn's lessons from the last 2 years through Aquarius, whatever the Aquarius house is in your chart, and whatever you have tension with, right, between Mars and Gemini and all these Sagittarius planets, if we can lean into Saturn, the structure, the boundaries, right, we can release a little bit of that pressure that we feel. And again, that's going to look differently for everyone. But, if you're someone that's in the top tiers of the Patreon, the monthly readings, we can go into any of this stuff in your specific chart, right? And you're always welcome to ask questions, etc., in the comments, or if you're here live. And I'll answer with the time and space that I have. But leaning into Saturn for a little bit of structure and support, again, based on the lessons that Saturn has been teaching you over the last couple years, because now Saturn just stationed direct for the last time in Aquarius until it goes all the way back around in 30 years. So it's moving through for the last time forward in your Aquarius house. So for the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been going back and forth through that same house, kind of teaching you lessons, bringing you back, showing you where you need boundaries, showing you where you need structure, showing you where the responsibilities are, and all of this stuff. And so now you're at this point to be able to kind of say, okay, Saturn, I heard you, right? And I recognize whatever this lesson is for me. And I know that it can help me move through this tension. Okay, so I hope that made sense and was helpful. But that kind of Mars with Neptune, Mars with Saturn, and then Saturn kind of playing that role there is a story that's playing out in a lot of different ways, probably in your experience. Sometimes, you'll need the Saturn part of it to come in your experience, and like sometimes you'll play the Saturn in an experience. So maybe there's tension in something that's happening maybe between your two kids, right? So say you have two kids and there's tension coming in, and you are the Saturn, right, that comes in and brings a little bit of structure to that conversation. This could be between two friends, right? Or maybe you are the one that's acting all wild and whatever, Mars retrograde in Gemini in a relationship, and somebody else has to come in and be the structure. Or maybe the other part of you has to come in and be like, okay, so what are my boundaries, right? Like, let me ground a little bit, let me find structure, right? So a lot of ways that this could play out. I'm done harping on about that. Okay, so as far as let me take a minute. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to check into the chat or come off mic as I take a minute just to recenter, regroup. Okay. So I already talked about the shift kind of that we're feeling from all the planets in Scorpio to moving into Sagittarius. So the other things here that are happening, one of the other main things that's happening during this moon is because it's in Sagittarius, we know that this moon is being ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is here at 28 degrees of Pisces. Jupiter is stationing direct on this day. It happens minutes after the exact full moon. But Jupiter has been stationing, right? So Jupiter has been at 28 degrees of Pisces since November 13th, and it'll be there until December 3rd. So it's moving very slow, which is what happens during a station. And during a station, the planet is quote unquote moving slowly or not at all. It's not really, it's just our perspective from Earth. But it becomes much stronger at its station degree. It has a strong influence. So when a planet is retrograde, I work with it as an internal feeling, right? Like it's a time for us to go internal and do a lot of that inward work, right? So Jupiter has been turned internal, and now it's going to turn external. So again, Scorpio, internal, to Sagittarius, external. So there's more of that. Okay, I've done this work from the inside, and now I can bring that out. I have that awareness, I have that purpose, I have that drive to now put action to some of those feelings, thoughts, emotions, etc. And when we talk about Jupiter stationing and its strong influence, right? So what is that? So the Jupiter check-in will tell you a lot more about this that I posted last week. But this is about spirituality, our beliefs, compassion and like creativity. Jupiter is also tied to healing and kind of repairing things in our life, expanding things. So Jupiter stuff will be of deeper influence, which is part of, again, why I was talking about this moon can feel discouraging to people that aren't feeling stuff, because it's about the work underneath. And if you trust and believe and have faith in yourself, in the universe, in the collective, in your whatever it is that you're working through with this journey, it's a lot about testing of that faith. And as Jupiter stations, that gets really strong one way or another, right? Like what beliefs we've been working through during this retrograde may get really loud during this station, right? Because it's got a strong influence. And so it's like, okay, this is what you've been working through. Now let's put it to action, right? So like, let's integrate it. Let's do that next phase, whatever that is for you. And so, Jupiter station is kind of, if we think of it with Sagittarius is the archer, right? And the thing that Jupiter does when it stations is during its retrograde, it's like pulling it back, tick, 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 right? The arrow. And then when it stations and it turns direct, it lets the arrow fly, right? And what we learn from Jupiter and a Sagittarius new moon is that sometimes in order to get where we want to go, we have to let the arrow fly. We have to allow our desires to be heard. And that comes with a lot of gunk sometimes, right? Like we all have, not all, a lot of people have trauma around desires, unmet desires, what that process is, grief of unmet desires, right? Fear of putting out our desires, fear of claiming what we want. There's a lot of stuff wrapped around it. So my invitation here is honor what gunk is coming up for you so that we can move through that, right? And get to, gunk is gunk, right? When we talk about, one of the things that I talked about in the Jupiter check-in is that a lot of stuff tied to Jupiter is tied to many of our trauma spaces, especially if we have religious trauma of any kind of like bypassing trauma. There's a lot of stuff that can come up when we work with Jupiter. So being aware of that and working through that can help you prepare to receive. So many people that I work with, and myself included, have trouble being open to receive, right? There's a lot of reasons why, right? So not even gonna, but working through that and doing that work of understanding why we feel the way we do about this word or that thing, right? Specifically tied to Jupiter, because there's so much happening right now with that. But even what we're going to do here today is prepare to work with the universe to manifest. And manifesting alone has so much that comes with it. And so I'm always open to talking with you one-on-one or having you share your experience with those words, because there's a lot of stuff that goes around it. And just to kind of clear that, my thoughts around manifesting is that we know systems of oppression are real. And I have watched the movie The Secret and I couldn't make it the whole way through. They're manifesting to me is magic and work that I do with myself, my ancestors, the universe, the planets, to focus my energy that I control into what I want to put it into, right? It's the control of my energy that I have control of. I know that there are things in my life that I don't have control of. And I know that bad things happen to people, period. Right? It has nothing to do with good or bad, or if they deserved it or if they didn't, if they manifested and all of this stuff. There's no shame tied to manifesting for me, but that's not always how it's been. This has been years and years and years and years of unraveling those terms and what they mean to me and where they came from and what the root of them is, and learning from Black and Brown and Indigenous creators and healers. And so if you ever need resources or help on that journey to unravel your own trauma and experience with these words, please let me know, and I will always help share those resources where I'm able. So I've had a couple questions about that stuff recently. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of level set where I stand with that. Okay. Sorry about that rant. It was not expected, but I just felt like maybe somebody needed it. So I hope that was helpful. Okay, taking a second to recenter and open the space and check in with the chat. Yeah. Okay. So one of the other things that I will note here is about what's happening with Chiron. So Chiron is the wounded healer. Chiron is in mythology. It's tied to our deepest core wound that we will spend the rest of our life kind of navigating and understanding and healing. And through that process of honoring it and healing it and understanding it and moving through it and holding it, we learn lessons and become a teacher and helper and mentor and healer of others through that wound. That's a possibility with Chiron. And so that's where the wounded healer comes from, right? And in this chart, we have Chiron that's here at 12 degrees of Aries. It looks like the little key here. And then it is in a trine, a fire trine, because Aries is a fire sign and Sagittarius is a fire sign, of these planets moving through Sagittarius and specifically the new moon. It will first hit Mercury and then Venus and then the sun. Well, the moon first, then Mercury, then Venus, then the sun. And with each of those hits, there's an opportunity for healing. And an opportunity for pain, right? An opportunity for us to come in contact with some old wounds. That's what happens with Chiron. It's that wound that like, just keeps, we think we're over it. And then, like, I don't know if you guys understand the energy that I'm trying to put into that, but it's annoying. And so in the United States, there's this holiday that we're maneuvering next week, but it's holiday season in a lot of places, and there's a lot happening politically in a lot of places. So these wounds may be tied to family stuff, they may be political, they may be with your work, they may be, there's so many different ways this can show up based on your time and space, lived experience, chart, etc. But what happens here, and I'll give you the dates of these Chiron trines. Because what happens is we have the ability to find healing that might not have felt accessible a month, a week, 2 months ago, right? So we're coming out of eclipse season now, and we're starting to finally maybe start to pick up on what, where we kind of leveled out with the eclipses. We're not going to really start feeling motion out of these eclipses and out of what's been going on in Mars retrograde until March of 2023. In all honesty, that's when we get a lot of planetary movement. We get everything out of retrograde and things start moving forward again. But still, there's a little bit of back and forth between now and then. And it's very much about leaning into the faith and the hope and the opportunity and the trust and belief. And when I say that, I don't mean like blind belief. That's the shadow of Sagittarius, is like spiritual bypassing of the reality of the pain, of the trauma that's happening. So being aware that that's possible with Sagittarius always, because Sagittarius sees so much of the big picture, it misses the details. And so it can come up as spiritual bypassing or bypassing of anything, right? Emotional bypassing, etc. And so that's one of the shadows that we work with Sagittarius is, making sure that we're honoring the truth and the reality of the now, even though we're able to see and have hope for, right? So holding both, right? Mars and Gemini, learning to hold both truths, right? And so, where was I going? Oh, Chiron. So I don't know what the transition was, but anyway, let me get back to the dates for Chiron, because that's what I remember that I was going to. Okay, so on the 23rd is the exact Sagittarius new moon. Later that night, the moon will hit its trine conversation to Chiron. Then on the 24th, Mercury has a trine to Chiron, and then the 25th, Venus hits that trine. And then at the beginning of December, the sun hits it as well. So this is a couple week period of us being able to work with our wounds. And again, this is because in Scorpio season, we went really deep and really intense, and we became aware of some things that maybe we weren't aware of during eclipse season and whatever. And now things have shaken out in a little bit, and we're able to see things in a different way or a new perspective, right, Sagittarius? And there's an opportunity here for you to choose you. For you to choose your truth and your story and your authenticity, and choose you, not at the harm of others, right? I need to put that little asterisk, but I hope that if you're here, you know that that's what my work is rooted in. But working with this is going to look differently for each person, right? When we talk about Chiron, it's very rooted in your own wounds, and so when we work with Chiron, it's about your healing journey. So it's hard for me to give advice around, like practical advice around how to work with this. But my invitation with any new moon is to release what's no longer serving you and plant seeds for what you want your truth and future to be in the first place, right? Shoot the arrow, let it go, man. Like own your desires. That's something that I'm also learning to do. And recognize that it's okay if we don't get them, right? Not necessarily clinging to our desires, right? And that's all a journey. But to work with this energy is big about letting go of what you don't need to carry into this next part of your life, and the wounds that you do choose to carry into the next part of your life. How are they fueling your purpose? How are they fueling your liberation or joy or justice or whatever it is that is rooted for you? And my invitation, Jupiter is the writer, it's the author, Sagittarius is the philosopher. So my invitation with the new moon is to write down what your dreams are, write down what it is that you desire, write down what it is you want to release even, right? Which can happen before the new moon, on the new moon. And then as the new moon starts to build is when we plant those seeds. So as we go into the last part of our time together, we're going to clear out the chakras in order to make space for what we desire, to make space to co-create with the universe, to ask for or invite some kind of support from the universe, from your guides, from deities, from whatever it is that you feel connected, drawn to, supported by. Okay. Ramble. I think that's all I have for right now on the new moon. What I will say is today we're going to do that chakra stuff. And then I'm also going to post on Patreon before the new moon this kind of an option for a new moon ritual with manifesting, right? So again, this work now, this pre-work of how you feel about manifesting, what that means for you, what your beliefs are around your energy field and how you can use it and what your gifts are and all of that stuff plays into this. And it doesn't matter where you are on that journey, right? You can be just starting to question the word manifestation, or you can have already moved through it and recognize that doesn't work for you, but you have another word that you kind of like insert into that, experience, what that is. Right. So this is going to be very personal for each of you, but so I will post an option of a ritual to use for the new moon, because we're not going to get into that today because the new moon energy is not here yet. This is still the last quarter moon phase. So we're still in that releasing kind of cleansing space to prepare. So yeah. Okay, so any questions with the people here live on anything about the moon, anything you would like to share, any wisdom you would like to bring to the space, questions, comments, concerns? I'll leave it here for just a minute or so in case, as I kind of prepare for the next part. Okay, so now we're going to do a little check-in with the chakras. We're going to start, if you were here or have watched the moon gathering last month with the breath work, we're going to start the same way, just kind of coming into the body, calibrating, doing a couple breaths to just center. And then I will take us into a little bit of a breathwork exercise to check in with the chakras. I will have up on the screen all of the different chakras for you to use. If it's confusing, feel free to put your phone down or whatever works best for you as we go through. So I'm going to turn off my video. I'm actually first going to take a second and cleanse my space and just the energy here. Feel free to do whatever feels safe and comfortable for you. I'm going to use this incense from my dear friend on the West Coast. Just cleanse our space for a moment. Take us in. Okay. Okay. So this moon aims us towards the future. It leads us into opportunities and hope, potential for future and healing. And it teaches us that in order to hit the target, sometimes we have to release the arrow, intentions or desires. This is a really good moon to manifest and to yield and wield our energy and our gifts. So today we're going to work through some of the setup to that process. So in my experience with manifesting and co-creating with the universe, I first always like to ground and center and protect my space. You can use the time here today. You can always go back to the breathwork exercise from last month's moon gathering as well for these first couple steps. So after centering and grounding and protecting, then we go into a release and a clearing of the space, which is what we're going to move through today with the chakras. But there's other tools and ways that you can assess what your needs are and where needs to be resourced to be able to receive. Then once we have the space, we can call in, ask for support, and co-create with the universe. So we're just going to start today with taking time to check in and clear out the chakra centers. Just taking a couple breaths, do a little check of your body and the surroundings. Shift around, scan, resource yourself as needed. I'll be giving prompts and suggestions throughout our time today. These are for you to use or to lose as you please. If your mind takes you somewhere during this time, I always invite you to honor that. Notice what is pulling at you naturally. Introspection is real, and sometimes that's a struggle. And so if this next part is hard for you, just focus on the breath and settling into the moment with your body. As you settle into this type of work, it may become easier for you to touch into your internal experiences over time, and maybe not, and that's perfectly okay. Just breathing and checking in. Taking a moment to notice your temperature. As you notice and resource your temperature needs, come back to the breath. Consider if you're thirsty or need a snack. You need to run to the bathroom. You deserve to take the time in this moment to meet your needs where you are. Maybe in this moment you feel called to dim the lights in the room, to light a candle or incense. Taking this time to breathe into your experience. Recognizing and nurturing your sensory needs. When you are ready, and back into your natural breath cycle, begin to scan your body. Does it feel like you need to shift or move to find more comfort? Maybe it feels good to sway as you breathe, or place your hand on your chest or stomach. Do what feels safe and natural for you as your body moves and settles into each breath. Continue scanning your body and holding or honoring anything that it is bringing up for you. As you complete your initial scan, come back to your breath, breathing deeply and filling your lungs fully. As you pull the fresh air into your lungs, release the tension in your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, your hips. With each inhale, feeling your body surrender and soften, settling into this space and time, filling this container with space, grace, and support so that you can show up authentically and safely. Softening your gaze or closing your eyes as you breathe. Noticing the way your body moves as you breathe and fill your lungs with life. As your mind wanders, notice, then come back to the breath. If you get nothing out of this container except a moment to breathe, that is time perfectly spent. With the next breaths, we're going to begin intentionally clearing out old stagnant energy, releasing it through to the earth, through our root chakra. The root chakra is located at the base of your spine. Notice your root chakra now as you breathe into it. Maybe placing a hand there to bring attention to it, or just noticing and honoring its place in your aura. Notice and honor anything that comes up for you. Continue to come back to the breath. At any time during this process, you can choose to stop and spend time with anything that comes up needing to be held, and come back to this when you're ready. As we hold space with the root chakra now, we notice a cord, a pipe, a string, or an attachment of some sort connecting our root chakra energy field to the earth. Notice the attachment now. Notice how this attachment now carries energy from your root chakra to the earth, seamlessly allowing it to be neutralized and recycled. Breathe here with your root chakra. Allow the root chakra to surrender what you are storing and is ready to release. With each breath, each inhale, fresh, new air coming in, and old, stagnant energy being released to the earth. We will do this with each of the 7 chakras, checking in, holding space, and clearing old energy from each of them separately, building relation to how they express. As we breathe into the root chakra at the base of your spine, consider the energies that are held there. The root chakra is where we hold our trust, our foundation, our security. Breathing with the root chakra and allowing it to take any energy and recycle it through to the earth. Moving up now to the sacral chakra, which falls right below your belly button. As you take a moment to hold and sit with your sacral chakra, remember the cord and the attachment that carries the old energy to the earth. Allow any old stagnant energy in the sacral to be released. Notice anything that comes up here as you hold and connect to the sacral chakra. Take a moment here to breathe into that space. The sacral chakra is where we hold our creativity. It's where we hold our expressions of sexuality and sex and intimacy. Taking time with anything that comes up for you here. And remembering you can always come back to any of these chakras. And as we breathe here, we start to move our awareness up the body to above the belly button now, to our solar plexus chakra, where we hold our wisdom, our purpose, our power. Clearing out anything old, anything no longer needed, and making space to receive. Breathing into the solar plexus. Then imagining with each breath, fresh new energy, revitalizing this energy force inside your body. With the new energy, the old energy gets pushed out and recycled into the earth. And we breathe there as our awareness moves with the breath up again to the heart chakra now, found at our chest. This is the center of love and healing. Holding a moment with your heart chakra. You can ask to hear its story. Just sit with it for a moment as you breathe. Filling it with new life force energy. And releasing what's no longer needed into the earth. So we move up again to the throat chakra now. This holds our communication and our expression. This is where we do or don't feel heard, seen, and understood. Breathing into your experience of the throat chakra. Maybe even meeting it for the first time here today. Just making space here as you breathe. Clearing out what's no longer needed. Now our deep breaths fill our mind, and between our eyebrows is our ajna or third eye chakra. This chakra holds our awareness. It holds our truth and our wisdom. Maybe taking a moment even to brush it between your eyebrows, clearing away any old energy. Allowing yourself to take deep, full breaths, clearing out the space. Awarenesses that have been projected onto you, thoughts and beliefs that aren't yours, can be released into the earth. Noticing anything that comes up for you, holding it. Breathing into it, clearing it away. As we fill the mind now with fresh air, fresh breaths, swirling through your mind and releasing anything stagnant. Now at the top of your mind, you can feel an opening that reaches all the way to the sky. A bright light connecting you through the clouds to the cosmos. At the top of our head is is the crown chakra. The crown chakra connects us to our intuition, spirituality, the universe. As the chakra opens, it releases old programming, things that are no longer serving your experience. Only purity and protection comes through as we clear out. As we breathe now, with all of the cleansed chakras touched and honored, we hold gratitude for this aura cleansing tool. Starting from the top of my head and moving to my toes, allowing the energy to flow where it needs to go. We ask now that any stagnant energy may move. We invite anything heavy in the body or the auric field to lighten and dissipate. It is no longer needed. You can repeat or vibrate into the following affirmations. I am cleansed. I am renewed. My aura vibrates higher. As you are ready, you can come back to the space. Take as much time as you need.